So, Secret of the Mimic. What do I think of it? It's pretty good. But I do have a few problems with the designs. Why do they look like they're from entirely different companies? Seriously, how does Jackie relate in any way, shape, or form to it? Like, heckin' Sharpay. Bigtop makes sense as to why. That thing's massive and damn ticket booth. But Jackie, heck, even Dollie is a problem. Like, what the fuck? So, that's why I'm gonna try and fix this small problem. But how are we gonna do that? Well, 1, analyze the designs. And then 2, I'll show the drawings. But spoiler warning, since I will show some variants of 2 mascots of the game. But without further ado, let's get to analyzing the first animatronic. Why does she have joints? She's a jack-in-the-box, and usually those don't have endoskeletons or any machinery save for the crank and the popping up mechanics. Of course, the speaker makes sense as to why, since she actually needs that to speak, and she does speak before the chase. But she doesn't need a separate jaw, though. The animatronics like Circus Baby and Ballora, despite being later in the timeline, actually solved this problem, with their shells only having a smile while their endoskeletons have the normal jaw. So if we gave this to Jackie, then we'd solve one of the problems with her designs. But I do have a few nice things to say. First of all, I love the stretchy arms. They remind me of some of those old toys with like the bendy limbs and that. Like oh yeah, like that Brontosaurus character from Jujutsu. With the neck being the very material I was talking about. Another thing I love about Jackie's design is the face. Having a similar uneasiness with like the first main 4, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, when used right. For an example, when she's creeping around before her chase, we can see the Mimic's eyes and Jackie's grin in the dark. Along with her voice lines, it kind of implies that the Mimic is taking enjoyment from this. It also does look like something from its time, the 1970s. That's all I can think of. Let's go to the rest of the solutions for the design's complaints. One thing we can do to solve the problem for having visual joints is gloves. We can cover it up with gloves, as in the joints. If we want to keep her blue fingertips, just put them on the gloves. And since she's like a clown jester thingy, we can give her some ruffles in order to fit with her tutu. We can put those ruffles around her neck, her gloves to replace these blue and yellow things along her hands. And hang on, why is she made of metal? Shouldn't she be made of like fabric? Of course, her arms and legs, quote unquote, makes sense to be plastic. Her head is probably made of at least some kind of fabric. Hell, even foam would work for the inside of the of Jackie. Either that or like a metal wireframe would be the best to actually keep her shape. If you're not sure about what the metal wireframe is, look at the Ruined Daycare attendant flag and come back to me. But without further ado, let's put all our complaints and woes into the design. And here is the final product. I gave her ruffles around her neck, hands, and I gave her the orange arms like she has. I showed some of her endo from when she tears her lower half off. I made her have some red spots at the diamonds on her party hat, and I gave her purple cheeks and some new makeup. Next to her head, I drew the messed up version of her head, which you can see the actual mimic from the side of the head. Her black tears, yes, that's actually in the model. And I gave her the mimic eyes. Oh, and her nose is gone. Underneath that, I drew her lower half after she got torn off with the box, having a slight redesign. And her skirt's now ruffled. That should be all of Jackie. So now, Bigtop! I'm gonna be honest, this one's much harder to think of for complaints. He's genuinely a really well done design. His mouth's a music box tied to the other music man. He's a ticket booth, thus takes tickets with his torso and his 2 mini pairs of arms. And he has 2 massive pairs of arms. Wait, he has 2 massive pairs of arms? I know it's to hold the large signs and that, but apparently you can hook on rides with the arms and spin like and it'll spin like a carousel. Neat. But how would the rides connect? There's no hooks or chains or anything that gives us the idea as to how. Does he just hold them? Seriously, that's my only gripe. Okay, let's get the fix in it. Well, for Bigtop's design, it's mostly the same, really. I changed his head structure line up with the other MCM mascots. I made his larger hands line up with the smaller ones. His mustache is bigger, which covers his blue blush. Yes, he does have blush in the game. And I made his arms a bit more simpler. And the most notable change again was his back palms have hooks now, so the rides can connect, which I actually drew, which are similar to Bigtop, since they have the tent aesthetic in the hat where the hook to connect, or the bar to connect it is. Well, next to his head, I drew him destroying a roof or something with his arms, like he does in the chase. And last but not least, I drew the destroyed version of Bigtop's head, because I didn't realize that some of his face is still there, so he's missing his face there. Oops. But I guess we could talk about the map of the carnival, but all I'd really mention is to make it bigger for an actual carousel. I think that's it for Bigtop. Now, on to our last mascot for this video. I'm going to interrupt for a bit, but just to show some stuff about my holy! Hyperlink blocked. Only 5% of you are subscribed? What are you doing? Subscribe! Subscribe now, you bitch! Dollie, Dollie, Dollie. Where do I begin? It makes sense why she has an endoskeleton, since we actually see her body move pre-mimic. But there are some doors that she can open due to the power box she has in her back thing, which has shock therapy thing, like hand, palm thing, thingy mubbobbers. And a rail system, which is pretty alright, that makes sense. But why is her shell made of metal? Is it to keep electricity in there? I don't really know. And honestly, I think that's all I can think of. And of course, she doesn't fit in with the other animatronics. But that's a given. Which makes a bit more sense than Jackie, since she's stuck on a rail system. And, you know, isn't actually meant to be, like, a proper attraction seen up close. I don't think so. But we can talk about the positives of her design. Honestly, she does look pretty nice. Her hands look like mittens, and I love the fact that she has a proper hair, despite how much metal is wasted on it. And it could have been like a wig or something. But still, she does a good job of being a nurse animatronic with her appearance, and she establishes connections at the fun time, which is very neat. But we should show my design of Dollie. And here she is. I changed her face to give her a similar style to Jackie and the other costume mascots, along with making her appearance look more fabric, except for her hands. Since if Dollie needs to be metal to conduct electricity, then her hands, the spot she would need it most, would be made of metal. I also attempted to draw her hair, along with changing the icon on her hat to a hospital symbol because it's an asterisk for some reason. But her design is still generally quite similar, and of course some stuff were changed due to not having proper reference, like your shoes. Yeah, that's about it. But oh well. Aside from her design, I drew her power pack things as one of the sketches, and I drew the mimic version of her lower half. Of course with shading, and I added little heels she's implied to have. Because I sure as hell wasn't even gonna consider drawing Molten Dollie. Only do after this video actually does well and people want it. But that should be it for the actual main animatronics. Wait, am I forgetting something? The machine itself, the mimic. Yeah. Why does he look different from Ruin? Does this imply that Ruin mimics Mark 3 or 4? But then again, this is Fnaf. But aside from that, I think he's actually quite neat. I love the fact that we actually see his pistons and the fact that it looks more like a real animatronic than any endoskeleton ever. And how he actually looks towering in certain scenes. Mainly in David's room because we get both the little dude and the mimic stretching out to look larger like a damn animal. But we should actually talk about Ruin Mimic as well then. Yeah, why does he look so much more different from Mark 1 and 2? It's neat how we see some pistons and his mismatched hands tell us that he has replaced his limbs, and his torso looks neat, and kind of like an engine actually. But why does his head look like that? Sure, Mark 1 and 2 look a bit basic, but at least they look normal. Ruin Mimic has like yellow stuffing in his mouth. He has a bit of fabric that makes him look like he has an emo haircut. The wires on the other side are a neat touch though. And he generally does fit with the other endos. Though, sorry, this turned into a rant about the Ruined Mimic's head. But let's just show the design for this one, or these two. Yeah, I have no idea. And here it is, the Mimic. I drew all of him, his joints, his pistons, all of it. I had a piston in his spine, and kind of mixed Ruined Mimic's torso in the body with the aspects of Secret of the Mimic's Mimic. But, the sketches, the top one is how I think his eyes would be like screens, with the sketch on the smiley face and an eye in his eyes. Get it? The second sketch is his cloak and hand palms. The third sketch is showing the Mimic peeking out of a costume, which I thought would be really neat to show. But that should be it. If you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to see more of yours truly, and comment other characters I should redesign, because this video does well and gets, let's say, 50 likes. I'll do a part 2, but Mr. Explodey's Discord, the music here, and the time frames will all be in the description. That's about it. Sayonara, suckers!